on Instagram Live, but on the others, on Andy's, you'll see a cool background.
Oh, okay. So I didn't play my intro. Here's the intro. Hello, my friends. It's Andy Falco for the Andy Falco Show, coming to you live from Yorba Linda, California. And I have an exciting show today. We're going to jump right into it really quickly. I only have one thing I want to share with you, and that is Shield of Valor. And I need you to go there and check out our store, which is, where's my banner? Here it is right now. Yes, I've lost my sight. Isn't that horrible, getting old? I don't have it in front of me. I put it in the other thing. So anyway, go to shieldofvalor.com, shieldofvalor.com. It's a new program that I'm going to be presenting in 2026. March of 2026, it will be fully out and operating. But we're going to be helping men create courageous Christian young men that go out there and become strong husbands, courageous husbands, and leaders in business. Good. And teach them how to do work with their hands and stuff like that. So that'll be coming out in 2026. But go to shieldofvalor.com. There's a store on there too. We have some new shirts that I just put on there. And so you guys will love the shirts, especially you men out there. A lot of workout shirts. I have one shirt that says Jesus in the gym for the mind, body, and soul. Huh. Yeah.
I can think of a few people who might like that.
Good. So go on there and get it. So Leandra Blades is my guest. How are you, Leandra?
I'm good. How are you?
Oh, good. How's your summer been? And what summer? Winter break.
My winter break. My winter break has been good.
Starting off perfectly.
This might not just be vision. This could be something entirely different. No, winter break has been good. You know, one of my sons in the military is deployed right now, so he wasn't home. But we were able to talk with him and on Christmas and stuff, and he's doing well. My other two were home and got to, just visit a lot of family, a lot of downtime with this rain, I think too. It kind of, unless you have plans like go, snowboarding or skiing or something like that, it kind of limits you, but it's also nice too, because a lot of fireplace, a lot of movie watching, and a lot of games. I never was a big fan of games. Mm. And I'm really starting to win a lot, so I'm becoming a fan. So
we did that on Christmas Eve too.
Yeah, if you want to play some games, I'm willing to play now, because I seem to have gotten very good at some of these, especially strategy games.
We played a couple games that they just kind of get out of hand, especially when you have to put answers. I forget the name of the game, but you play it on the TV through an iPad.
Oh yeah.
And it says, finish this sentence.
Right.
But teenage kids are, it's not good. I had to put a stop to it. Yeah. Go to a dice game or something like that.
Yeah.
All right. I found the graphic. It was in the wrong folder, but shieldofvalor.com right there. Another one I want to tell you about, the Resurrect Ministry. That's my wife and I's ministry. Make sure and go there. She has a lot going on right now. She's going to be traveling over the United States, speaking on the dangers of Islam and what's going on in our world right now. So you're going to want to pay attention. She's going to be happening now at Calvary Chapel, Chino Hills. In February. And she'll be promoting her book out there too. So just look for that. All right. So I got those promotions out of the way. So I want to get to one question first that's not necessarily related to the school board, but it is. And that has to do with our city council. And in particular, we got this woman by the name of Janice Lim, who has recently been a mayor, but she's back to just being city council member, as I understand it. Why does she say she's a conservative Republican, but yet everything she does is a liberal, progressive Democrat? What's going on with her?
Well, I think if you want to be elected to office in Yorba Linda, then you need to say that you're conservative, and that you're Republican. But I will say, just the attacks that I've had to deal with within the past few months. And what I have found is, I will come on and I'll go out on social media. I'll say it to your face. I've asked to meet several times with Janice Lim, and she refuses, just ignores, the request to meet, because I don't think she wants to be held accountable for the things that she's done. But she'll take coffee and she'll, go do lunch, and she'll try to, push propaganda and nonsense. into these, with these people, from our city, and absolutely completely lie about what's going on in the school district, what all these things. I mean, I even too, when I was being endorsed in 2024, I had to sit down with Young Kim's campaign team and actually Kelly Ciarto, because she had gone and was trash talking me and just absolutely saying ludicrous things to these people and saying not to endorse me. So, I mean, so it's just like a constant thing with her. But I will say that what happened with this is she was actively campaigning for Misty Jansen, who, was lying once again in 2024 to the community like she did in 2020, saying she, was nonpartisan, didn't believe in critical race theory, boys and girls sports, all these things. And then what happens after the election? She loses again. And then she's out there with Sam Majovich and Pride at the Pier yelling and screaming about, how men should be in women's sports. Right. And then people, were calling me. Janice Lim was asking them not to vote. If they wouldn't vote for Misty Jansen, just don't vote for me. Don't vote at all. So I don't know how, how that really works. Is that a good thing for your elected officials to tell people don't vote? She's been running around lately. The latest thing is that she's been telling people that she supported the board majority's resolution. I brought a resolution forward to keep men out of women's sports. Right. And everyone knows a resolution is not law, not policy. It is simply saying that you're advocating for something and you're taking a stance. And so it's what we did in COVID against the mandatory vaccine and the mandatory mask. We did a resolution against this. And so even back in 2022, she called Sean Youngblood when we were fighting this. And she says, you need to take a step away from Leandra. She's dangerous to the district, and just do what Newsom says. And so first of all, if anybody,
a Republican that said,
just do what Newsom says.
Wow.
So she said that to him. So Sean called me and said, oh my gosh, what's going on? But she'd been doing this to Marilyn Anderson since, we were elected. She's basically been running Marilyn Anderson, which is why I think Marilyn has gotten in so much with the Democrat Party and the liberals and the teachers union. So the recent one that she's come out and said is that the reason we're deficit spending, which we actually are not deficit spending, but the reason that this is happening is because when I was board president, I just spent money like crazy. Yeah. So $1 million for an innovation lab and apparently using developer fees to create USI was causing deficit spending, which everyone knows 98% of school districts in California are, in deficits or deficit spending simply because the low birth rate, unfunded pensions, the medical, all of these things that are happening in the state of California, education and paying, for this education, that's not any different. So she's been sitting down with people in the community, telling them I'm dangerous. I fired 28 people. And I'm sitting here going, okay, so if you're really in city council and you understand government, you should understand that one person cannot do all the things that she is accusing me of doing. Right. So in 2021, I knew I had a target on my back from her before she was even elected to anything. She was running around telling principals that I was destroying the district and I need to be voted out. In 2021, when I'm in a board minority. Right. So she's just, I think the thing is that she sat me down and she was trying to tell me, she asked me what my, what my goals and what my stuff was, when I got on the board. And I told her about middle school sports and all of these things. And she says, oh, well, you should let Sean handle the middle school sports. You should let Marilyn do this. And I said, no, these are my campaign promises. I'm going to handle this. And so she got very upset that I basically wouldn't let her run me. So I have, an unelected official, that's just trying to. So we know she's running Marilyn Anderson. She tried to run Sean for a while. Sean, after about 6 months, Sean figured it out and stepped away. But now she's in with Carrie Buck. She's in with the teachers union. She's in with the Jim Bell and the Sam Majovich and all of these people who worked very hard to have us lose our board majority.
Wow. What a fraud. All right, let's get back now. Let's go directly to school board stuff. Okay. And we'll go back to Anderson, and I wrote down my question so I didn't forget. Okay. And Carrie Buck called to put Cherniss and Gates on administrative leave, and they started an investigation. You called it the Christmas coup. And it definitely, as far as I've been reporting, has been a fraud. in all its entirety. Everything about it's been a fraud. So what happened? What's happening, and what happened with that whole?
Okay. So in 2024, December of 2024, as you know, we'll even go back further. It has been reported to me, reported to others, that Marilyn Anderson and Carrie Buck were actually colluding with someone to file a complaint against Cherniss and Gates. So Marilyn Anderson, Richard McAlinden, Linda Mannion, who was the CTA president at the time, this PYLUSD Truth, they were all sending PRA requests, which is public information requests, into Puerto Rico. I almost said Puerto Rico, Palos Verdes, to try to get dirt on Cherniss.
Yeah.
And so we were starting to hear rumblings that they were trying to find dirt, get ready to, get rid of him if they could win the board majority for the next, in the next election. So that stuff started happening. And so you hear all this stuff. And so we had a supermajority in place for Cherniss and Gates and basically the whole cabinet, just because we wanted to protect them. We didn't want to happen at OUSD, obviously that kind of blew up. And in fact, too, Jim Elsasser in 2020, before we came on, he was the first superintendent in our district to ever have been given a supermajority. In fact, that was one of his stipulations as he came over, because we had just won the election. And so he says, I'll only come over as a supermajority in place, which means that you can only be fired with a 4-1 vote.
Right.
So they gave him that. And so they're trying all these things. We have this one, David Rattler, the dude with the walker.
Yep.
He's suing. So after all this stuff, is put in place, we have a supermajority. They can't find any dirt on Cherniss. They keep trying and trying and trying. Rattler takes us to court in November and tries to stop us from having a vote. And so the judge, he tries to get a temporary restraining order. So the judge basically says, like, this is crazy. I sat in the back and watched, and it was Esther Kim and Rattler and who else was it? Matt Wilkinson, and like kind of the normal people. They all came, to support David Rattler. So then he filed a lawsuit against our district as well, which ended up causing money. And so David Rattler was working with Marilyn Anderson, Tricia, Quintero, Carrie Buck, that whole teachers union campaign.
Can I just ask a question real quick? I'm sorry to interrupt you, but these people that you've been naming, that I've named several times on my shows, who are they?
They're just Democrat Party operatives is what I can think, because really, like, who are you?
They don't, as far as I know, some of them don't even have kids in the district. Some are too old. Their kids would be 89 themselves, but they don't have grandchildren, as far as I've been able to find. Maybe a couple of them do. And that makes no sense that these people from a senior center are coming out with their walkers and filing lawsuits because of why. They don't even know Cherniss.
Right.
He and Gates have all the knowledge and the competence and the history of running school districts, and they don't want that.
So they don't want it because they believe the conservatives doing it. Obviously, when Cherniss came on, we started making moves. Enrollment, like, we didn't lose 400 kids that year. We were stabilizing. We're offering new programs. They don't want Republicans, they don't want conservatives to be able to make a turn, because then it will show that what everybody has been saying and why everybody's leaving the public school system, that it was actually correct. What we were doing is correct, that public school is dying. We have people leaving in droves because of all this stuff that's going on in the classrooms. We have so many kids who can't read. All these things are happening. And so when you're trying to fix it, they don't want it to be fixed, because the same thing, like, what if we audited the school systems? What if we audited the state for this? Like, where is the money actually going? Is it the same as like in Minnesota? And I'm a true believer of this. Like, where is a lot of this money actually going?
Well, because how is it possible that we have the highest taxes and we have one of the states that has the most money going to education, be one of the worst in education in the United States? In 40. So how is it that you have a group of people that would not see, okay, if we're at least 40th as far as education is concerned in the United States, why not try somebody like Cherniss and Gates? Because what we've had in the past hasn't worked. It's just continued to drop. Enrollments continue to drop. So we bring in somebody different, somebody that has ideas and wants to, look to the future as far as what education needs to be for the future of the education of our kids. Why? But they go to such lengths to stop progress?
Well, I will say that this is an old boys club. This is what this is. Like, so you have the California School Board Association, you have these law firms like Atkinson, Andelson, Loya, Rudd, and Romo. You have them running search firms, like to look for superintendents. You have all these things. And so everyone is playing the same game, basically to get hired. And you have to play along to stay in education. And Cherniss doesn't play that game. He does what's best for students. I mean, look at the retaliation he got from Linda Mannion, because we found out that Linda Mannion for 20 years was being paid to sit on her bottom at the union office and pass out yard signs for Nancy Watkins and the Democrat Party. Well, on a taxpayer dime, like 11:30 in the morning, she's passing out signs, picking up signs, and we're paying her. The taxpayers are paying her to be a teacher. So he stopped that, and he says, no, the CTA can pay for this if this is what you're going to be doing. And so, in fact, I have to check and see if the board majority reversed that. And, if the CTA is still paying for the union president, because the union president is sitting at the union office. She is not in the classroom, but they have her as, teacher on special assignment. So that was one of the reasons, was he wasn't playing ball with the union. He was saying, I'm not going to waste, we're going to put this money towards students.
Wow.
So I know it's a strange concept.
There was this guy by the name of Doug Kimberly. I'm not sure if you brought him up in your answer, but who was this guy? He said he was in the school board or in the board.
So as we're kind of like going up into all this stuff, we have lawsuits. So like essentially the Marilyn, Anderson, Tricia, Quintero, Carrie Buck camp teachers union, they're trying everything they can to make it so they can just vote Cherniss out. They don't want a super majority in place because then you have a 4-1 vote. They just want to be able to just say you're out of here. And that was what they were bragging during the campaign. If we get the board majority, we're firing everybody, they're out. And so then the lawsuit happens. And then so obviously that, so this lawsuit happens, which it was dismissed. Marilyn didn't just announce that her buddy's, case was dismissed the other day, like she did with the Palicky case. But so you have all these things happening. So a week before, so this is where it gets to be this is where the fraud and this is where all this stuff starts to go on. A week or two before the December board meeting, before Tricia's being sworn in, we start to get from the law firm, AALRR, an employee at that firm starts to say that Placentia-Yorba is going to blow up pretty soon. Won't give the details why, but says, a bomb is going to drop. And so in the education community, more and more people say there's going to be something that's filed and it's going to be this. And so we're sitting there kind of waiting. So like 5 days before the board meeting, Carrie Buck sends over a contract for Todd Robbins from AALRR, who had not been our attorney for the last year, year and a half or 2 years. She sends that over, which is like completely, if I ever say hey, can we have a contract? Not me as a board member, I don't go get the contract from someone and then go present it. HR goes and does that. They do all that work. So she submits it. It's not within the 10 days. And so Cherniss says, no, we can't put this on the agenda. We can put it on the agenda for January. Well, no, you're being insubordinate. So by Cherniss filing or following board policy, Carrie was saying that he was insubordinate. So then she gets Marilyn involved. Marilyn says, I support putting this on. And so, well, if you need something put on the last minute for an emergency, you have to have 3 board members. Well, Sean was still a board member. Sean says, I don't see the reason to do this. So, we put it off to January. So Carrie says in this email, I'm going to call a special board meeting. I'm going to do this. I'm going to do that. Okay. So what would you call a special board meeting just to hire an attorney? Why? So here we go. So Tricia gets sworn in, that board meeting. And in that board meeting, I think Marilyn became president. Well, we asked Marilyn because Marilyn at that time, she had a sustained complaint from Cherniss, basically investigation. I mean, this is out there in the community, so I'm not revealing secrets. Okay. But so she had a sustained complaint. She had been, employment complaints, always asking him if he's Jewish, making comments, yelling at him. Just all of these things that you're not supposed to do because the superintendent is your one employee. So he filed a complaint. They investigated the complaint. It was sustained. So ever since the sustained complaint, that was when all of a sudden Marilyn's running PRA requests. So this is completely retaliatory towards Cherniss. So we had asked because they were she wasn't allowed to go in and meet with Cherniss without an attorney or district personnel present. And so we said, well, how are you going to be a board president if you can't even meet with the superintendent one-on-one because you're harassing him? And so she lied, and she said she wasn't aware of anything with HR, which is a complete lie. And then later on in the thing, as you recall, in her campaign, she had stated that Cherniss had diverted $1.9 million from the Valencia kitchen to USI. She said that in her campaign information.
Right, she did.
The Valencia kitchen wasn't approved for any type of thing until after the election was over. So how do you move funds from somewhere that doesn't exist yet?
Right.
So it's a complete lie. So when all of that came out and then she lied more, the next morning, he filed another complaint against her. So then here we go, right? So this is all December 18th. So December 18th, he files another complaint. So apparently at 4 p.m. the next day, Marilyn Anderson calls for a special board meeting, doesn't say why, but we find out that this bomb that dropped has now dropped, and an employee has filed a hostile work environment against Cherniss and Gates, and she's calling for a special board meeting for the next day.
Okay.
So
we get crazy.
So we get to the board meeting, and on the board meeting agenda was not only was it to change the law firm to Todd Robbins and AALRR, it was also basically to deal with all of these confidential documents that, all of these, I mean, this is all out there now. So it's kind of like way past this whole point. But so you have all this going on. So I remember, so if you recall, I sat there and said, we have X, Y, and Z. I did like a 5-minute rant about all of the injustice that was happening here, because she brought forward one, but she didn't bring forward all of the documents. And so I call it the tale of two claims. So her claim, first of all, let's go back. The claim that she brought forward did not go through the proper procedure.
Was that the bomb?
That was the bomb.
Okay.
So what happens is if you get something like a hostile work environment or some type of employee complaint, goes through HR, and then it goes over to the law firms. It goes over to Keenan. It goes over, it goes through the workers' comp, and then they look at it, they talk about, they discuss it, and then they bring it back. So there was 2 complaints filed on December 18th. Why did one go the proper route, and why did the Cherniss and the Gates complaint not go through the proper procedure? Why not? So that's why I call it a coup. They didn't want it to see the day of light. Well, they wanted to put them on leave. That was the whole thing was to put them on leave. So I
because of pending investigations.
Well, that was the whole thing. You can't. It had to go through these procedures. So why is it one person, Gates and Cherniss, had a different set of circumstances, a different set of policy and procedures? And so another thing is Marilyn Anderson was running around with confidential complaints in her hand, which she is not allowed to do.
Right.
And so an attorney said that what she did, violating the policy, violating the procedure, like they said, we would never stand behind this. And then not only that too, they said what basically her running around with these confidential complaints, not going through the proper procedures, it was almost like her stealing paperwork from somebody's desk.
Do we know what she was doing with them? Was she showing them to community members?
It looks like she showed them to the superintendent secretary. We have no idea where these complaints, who saw the complaints. We have no idea. We have no idea what happened, but she was running around with them. So what I find out, so I didn't know this until the next day when, they go back there and they're not wanting to answer questions. They're not wanting to do any of these things. But, they're just, they have one goal. And so the next day, your questions aren't answered. Nothing's happening. It's just extremely, you have an attorney back there with you who has been our attorney for 2 minutes. Mm-hmm. And so did he have the claims on his iPad? I wonder. And that's another thing. That's a violation, because to give an attorney our confidential documents and our claims before you're actually hired on as an attorney, right, that's illegal. Yep. So you have all these things going on. And so we come out into open, and what we find is that there's a person named Doug Kimberly, who after Doug Kimberly left when Cherniss was coming to Placentia-Yorba as our superintendent, Doug Kimberly was the person who took his place as an interim in Palos Verdes. Mm-hmm. So we now have Doug Kimberly sitting in our boardroom telling the community that he is the next interim superintendent.
Of PYLUSD.
How are you sitting there telling people that you're the next interim? If no vote has been taken, we're still in closed session. You have no idea what's going on in closed session. And so people are sitting here always talking about Brown Act. When you want to talk about a Brown Act, you have a guy that's sitting, and I mean, he works for a superintendent search firm. He's sitting out there telling people, I'm the next interim superintendent. So my question would be is, what gave Marilyn Anderson any type of authority to go around looking for an interim superintendent? And within 24 hours, this is within 24 hours of calling for a special board meeting, unless this was a pre-planned ordeal. And so it's fraud on a district to collude with district employees to file complaints because you want to put them off on administrative leave. How much money is that? How much money did that cost us?
Right.
You have these investigations, which Todd Robbins chose an investigator who absolutely harasses and excoriates Republicans online. So you have your first conservative Republican Jewish superintendent, and you have your first Black deputy superintendent, and you find an investigator who absolutely hates conservative Republicans and is out there basically on social media talking about how much, what she really feels about these, and that's supposed to be your investigator.
But even with all that, did they ever find anything to fire Cherniss or Gates over?
Well, that's the whole thing. Like, we sat there forever. We sat there and sat there and sat there, and were charges filed?
No.
And so I think what happened too is Gates finally released it because they basically just said, hey, they're going to let you sit here until your contract runs out. Gates released that to the public, which caused a whole other stir. But you know what? Gates is, whatever Gates attorney, says to him, it's not whatever Todd Robbins tells Gates attorney, like whatever Gates attorney releases to him, like there's no attorney-client privilege between that. Mm-hmm. I mean, if you're trying to find another job, as you're going to go try and you're sitting here on admin leave, I would pull out an email that says, hey, basically nothing was sustained, but they're just going to leave you out on admin leave because it shows like, hey, this is what this board majority is just doing to me. Is it because I'm Black? What is it for? Like, I mean, you have to ask, why was Marilyn so concerned if Cherniss was Jewish? That was a question she was always asking.
Right.
Wasn't asking about kids. She was asking if Cherniss was Jewish.
Right.
So you have all these things going on. And then so the next day when I found out, I dug because they don't answer questions when I asked it. So I always have to go dig. So the next day I was on the phone with attorneys. I was on the phone digging about certain things. And I found that all of this was a violation of policy, violation of procedure. And it really did affect the vote because of the lack of information. You just have this, board member who can't read and who can't, speak very well.
True. You
have her coming out there and withholding information from the board is what I absolutely believe happened. And so I emailed her. I put this all. I said, we need to have another special board meeting because what you did was a violation of policy and procedure. She didn't even answer. She refused. In fact, for the entire year, anytime I emailed her, she never once answered me. Not once. Is that a good board president? You don't answer other board members with questions or anything like that.
Well, here's my theory on this. That issue about who Marilyn is and Buck and Quintero are. And I'm going to try to do it in the nicest way. Mm-hmm. But it seems to me that the teachers' unions support and get elected the most uneducated, incompetent people they possibly can, because those are the only people they're going to be able to run and get them to do their bidding for them and do the things for them.
100% agree.
Because the reason they don't answer it because they don't know how to answer it without somebody from the teachers union giving them the answer.
Right.
Because Marilyn Anderson, as bad as she can not read, she can only read answers.
Yes.
Whenever she's asked a question, if she doesn't know the answer, she's got to go to somebody else. Mm-hmm. Like, well, how do you think I should answer that?
Yeah.
Or
she reads a script.
Or she reads a script. Mm-hmm. Those are the only two things.
Yes.
So it's as much as I cannot stand the three of them. Again, I'm being as nice as I possibly can. I feel a little bit sorry for them because they're just being used. Yeah. And it makes them look like really horrible people.
Right.
Like what actual common sense person thinks it's okay to have men compete in girls sports?
Right.
Who would go after our first and only Black superintendent when you're also saying that you have to have CRT in the school? Why would you say that everybody's racist and that you investigate a Jewish man for no reason? No, right. There's nothing to go after him about. He's
just it's the fact that they didn't like him. He wasn't going to yield to them. Like, there was emails. I mean, there's tons of emails back and forth. I even had to get involved in them because he says, I can't do that. You're asking me to violate board policy and procedures. And so up until then, they're running the show, because I remember Elsasser one day said that Karen Freeman and Carrie Buck were threatening to fire him because he was pushing, because I was asking for the CRT ban to be on the agenda. They didn't like that they were putting it on the agenda, so they were about to fire him, which, like after, but the whole thing too is in, Janice Lim and the union and all these people were running around saying that Rick Lopez and David Giordano, we had just fired all these people. And so I have brought forward the emails, and I've read them in a board meeting, that shows that Cherniss wasn't even our superintendent when Rick Lopez resigned and went to Claremont. Neither was David Giordano, because the email is sent to Mike Matthews, who was an interim superintendent at the time. And so they've kind of walked it back a little bit. But when you run around talking about, all these people are fired and all these people were, they're just you just tell the truth. Right. If you tell the truth, but then you can't stand on, but they can't stand on the truth. And so you just have this, it's just this network of just this old boys. Like they knew exactly who should be next. It didn't matter if you're competent. It didn't matter if you knew what you're doing or not. And this is the thing that's very scary in education, is we've had people in ed services who have had absolutely no clue what they're doing, but they get promoted there because prior superintendents, I believe that there was up until recently, up until Cherniss, there was basically like, this was who the next superintendent was going to be. This is who the assistant superintendents were going to be. And then everybody's just going to fill their place, fall in line. And it didn't matter if you didn't know how to do your job. It didn't matter that the kids weren't learning. It didn't matter because it was the homeboy hookup.
Well, here's the thing, is that when you put somebody that's competent in there, it didn't load. Gosh darn it.
Well, I think another thing too is so before we go to that slide, so when I was going back to this whole thing is, as they continued to say that Rick Lopez was being fired, we did a special board meeting because when Rick Lopez put in his resignation letter to go to Claremont, we had been having problems we had basically said, we don't want any more hires. Like, don't bring us like a bunch of like new positions and new hires and all these people, because we have a new superintendent coming in. So let him choose what he wants to do. So they kept doing that. And so we called a special board meeting to discuss this and say, okay, you're like, you're gone in 30 days. We have a new superintendent coming in. And so we need to not be going this way, hooking up your friends with jobs and stuff before you're out the door. We need to basically just like have somebody there that's going to hold firm. So when we did that, I didn't have, or it was Sean at the time that was board president. Sean hadn't called people and asked anybody to be an interim superintendent because he didn't know how the vote was going to go. He didn't know what was going to happen. So, so that's the whole thing that was very suspicious about Marilyn and Carrie's actions, were they're sitting there calling for the special board meeting. They're sitting there doing all these things, threatening this. But then, Marilyn had called several people. So you're telling me that you've called 6, 7, 8 people in 24 hours to try to be an interim superintendent. I don't buy it. And I think if this gets investigated, you pull their phone records, and their phone records will reveal everything. Yep. But you know what? So basically our district, the last year has gone through a fraud, because if it's true, and I'm just saying this, I believe it is, and I've had district personnel tell me that it is true. And so I believe that they colluded with a complainant. And I believe this was the biggest setup. And then so we're paying 2 superintendents. We're paying 2, an HR superintendent, a deputy. So we're paying all these people to be on leave. We're paying for all these investigations. We hire a law firm, and suddenly this guy who is covering for the board majority, in my opinion, and who's running interference for them, he's suddenly making buku bucks sitting in closed session and sitting in our board meetings, 5-6 hours. We've never had that before. David Huff would be in our closed session on Zoom, 20 minutes, say what he has to say, inform us, and out the door. Right. But yet now in 6 months, like I think our last bill from Orbach, Huff, and Henderson for an entire year was maybe $121,000.
For a whole year.
For a whole year. From December to June of 2024 into 2025, we paid $341,000 for this law firm. And you know what I think the real reason is they needed Todd Robbins in that room to run interference for them because they can't handle myself and Todd.
Right.
They need somebody in there because when we ask these questions, they can't answer. Having Todd Robbins as an attorney is like having a 6th board member because he doesn't just advise you, he gives his opinion. You know, you see it in open session all the time. Well, what is just your legal opinion, please? I don't care about what your personal opinion is. And not only that too, is this Todd Robbins has been on my social media, stalking my social media. In fact, too, another board member in another district, conservative board member, she says, who is Todd Robbins and why is he like in my social media and my LinkedIn? And I said, well, he does this to conservative board members. He did it to Jen Wiersma. Jen Wiersma was the person who turned me on to the fact that he stalks her social media. She goes, you need to check yours.
And this is the guy who they have as an attorney.
And this is the guy who is an attorney in our district. So you're telling me that everything is, is kosher. It's all good.
So let me just stop just for 1 second, because for however long we've been on, 36 minutes already. It only got to my third question. But you've answered some of the other ones that are actually farther down. Right. So this is a lot of stuff. There's a lot of things being thrown out there. There's a lot of different moving parts. And I can see why some parents zone out. They'll maybe try to attend a school board meeting and they see the two different sides yelling and screaming. And, they may catch a couple of these shows where we're talking about all the different things that are going. But that clearly is another strategy in a way to make it sound so chaotic that people just like lose their minds and say, I can't keep up with who these different people are and what did Gates do and what did Cherniss do? They must have done something or else they wouldn't have suspended them but they've done nothing. And the bomb's going to drop and the bomb is empty. There's nothing. Yeah. But they tell everybody there's this huge bomb and it goes all over social media and Yorba Linda moms, and they're happy to destroy people's lives with no information.
And you should ask Janice.
But I just want to say this one thing is that, but then they all blame it on you. And they say, well, it's Leandra causing all these problems. Well, Leandra's just asking questions, right? Just because you ask a question about why are Gates and Cherniss, just those two questions, why are they under investigation? Well, we can't tell you. It's obviously something wrong. And then in the end, we're paying Gates in particular because Cherniss has gone on to Beverly Hills Unified School District and is doing an amazing job, doing the job that we could have had here. Yes. But we're just paying this guy, Dr. Gates, who is an amazing man, hundreds of thousands of dollars to do nothing.
He had a great paid vacation.
And nobody asks why. Yeah. Like you ask why, and all of this is your fault. All this discourse, the millions of dollars, the investigations, the people on paid leave, that's all Leandra's fault.
Well, I think the thing is that you start asking questions because as you're saying this, Nick Shirley, he's, they're saying, oh my gosh, he's racist or he's this because he's asking questions of where all this fraud is. Like I asked a question, like Carrie Buck was using the print shop, the district print shop for his house OC. She's calling it a donation. A district cannot donate to an elected officials, like you can't do that, like the place that you govern.
It's
and
wild.
So I asked for an investigation into that and LSASA refused, but they also too, Buck, it was Buck, Anderson, and then Karen Freeman. And people were telling me she's done this for years. And so you start asking questions and people get upset because the hookup is over. And that's the whole thing is that, when Cherniss came in, he found that we were like violating the law in special education, that you cannot, you cannot expel or suspend kids based on, like if you have ADHD and you keep jumping up in the classroom or talking out of turn or, tapping, you can't suspend somebody because that's part of your disability. And so he found that that's what the district was doing. And so he puts a stop to it and he gets pushback and he gets people coming up and lying and saying this. He says, no, you can't do this. This is illegal. And in fact, another district, because that was kind of the thing that districts were doing. You can't go in and tell a parent, in a thing, you can't say your kid will be expelled if you don't transfer schools. which was what they were doing to people. That's totally against the law. You cannot do this. Like, you cannot tell a kid you will be expelled if you do not transfer schools. Like, you can't do that. And that's the type of stuff that's happening. And he said no. So you have all these people who are doing this, and you have, principals are blowing the whistle on the people who are doing this type of stuff. So he comes in and fixes it so we're within the law. But because the old boys club, well, this is how we've always done it. So that's part of the thing is he was doing this. And so the teachers union, they didn't like him because he didn't want to meet with them all the time. They had this like standing weekly meeting and, all these, going to coffee shops. Like, I think Rick Lopez went to coffee once or twice a week with the union, so you have all these things where, the teachers union's running it. And so he just wasn't interested in that. So that's where we just have, you just have all kinds of this stuff going on. And then, so obviously Renee Gray was put in as the interim superintendent during the Christmas coup. And the same thing happened to her. They were telling her what to do. They were trying to they were down at the district. Marilyn was hobbling around the district office like every day, just harassing people. Like, as a board member, like, what happens in the board? And this is the thing I don't think people actually understand. What happens in the board meeting, that is the only authority you have. I can't go down to the district office. I can't go onto school sites and start telling people what to do. The only authority I have is in the boardroom when we actually make the vote. And so you had Marilyn, you had Carrie, you had them all of a sudden the next day after they let, put Cherniss and Gates off a leave. Marilyn texted me, please come to this thing so it stands in solidarity. I was like, what are you talking about? Like, you're that delusional to think that we're okay with what you're doing. And she's in these admin meetings and they're doing all these things that board members should not be doing. And so Renee Gray gets put in as the interim, and then they're in there trying to run her. And she's saying, whoa, like, because she was using a different law firm and they wanted her to only use Todd Robbins. And so they would demand that she use Todd Robbins. She says, but I don't feel comfortable. Like, I need to have somebody that's like, I feel like is in the middle. Like, you know what I mean? That doesn't have like all of these things happening and isn't stalking board members' social media.
And an attorney that's doing attorney work.
Exactly.
What's the law say? Whether it's civil law, criminal law, whatever it is, what does that say and how do we fit into that?
Right. And then so another thing too is that so what was Renee's actual downfall was Tricia Quintero wanted to do when Trump was doing all the DEI stuff, get rid of, like, we need to get rid of it. She wanted to actually, like, my understanding is she was pushing to have it put on the agenda to keep DEI in our schools. And so once again, it was within the 4 or 5 days. And so Renee says, I can't do that. It could go on the next agenda. And so, so then what happened? Special board meeting a few days later, and she's out, and this Mussolino clown is in. So Todd and me and Todd were about to go to a CIF basketball game for Todd's daughter. And suddenly we're called into a special board meeting, and, you had Buck and you had Anderson. They were interviewing people for positions. Like, they were doing stuff that board members are not supposed to be doing. They're doing these interviews. They're calling people for, to be the assistant superintendent of HR and then just bringing them forward. And then, then we have this Mussolino interview, and you're sitting there going, who the heck is this? Well, he was Nancy Watkins' buddy, far left progressive who works at Cal State Fullerton. And so he was, so he gets put in. Obviously, I was a dissenting vote. Todd wasn't even there. And why? Because Renee followed policy and procedure. So then you come in and then you have everything go to hell in the handbasket. I mean, look at the attack on OCSCS the second Cherniss left. Yep. Olivia Young went to Cherniss and Beth Fisher in December and said, hey, I want to do a dual language at Tuffrey. And they said, no, that doesn't make any sense. That will take, OCSDS feeds in Esperanza. That will take, enrollment away from them, so on and so forth. So they said no. The second that happened, Cherniss was put on leave, Olivia Young was going in there and she was changing everything. And, and so I don't ask questions usually, like in public, that I don't know the answer to. Yeah. It took 7 months for her to admit that it was her that was violating the charter policy, and the contract and making all these changes.
I remember her being asked directly 5-6 6-7 times in a special meeting that we had at the school district, and she refused to answer. Somebody says, "Are we going to just talk about the past or talk about what's currently going on?" But I just want to.
Is that Stephen Castillo? He loves to be completely negative against all the time. So
well, I was going to say
that's not a question.
We are talking about now. All the things that happened in the past is what's has led us to this point right now, where I'm going to show this graphic really quick because I just want to make sure that you guys understand the importance of this. It's kind of hard to see on the graphic, but you see this constant decline of enrollment. Nobody can see my pointer. I'm just using it here on my side. But you have this constant decline year to year to year. And then the 2003 to 2005, you see this plateau, this flat, and even possible a little bit of an increase in enrollment. Who was the superintendent during that period of time? Cherniss was the only time that we see a flattening out, and again, quite possibly an increase in enrollment is during Dr. Cherniss, which again, that's why they investigated him, because they couldn't have success.
Who was your board president?
Who was the board? Oh, yeah. Who was the board president? Leandra Blades was the board president. I'm sorry. And we had the majority. The parents had the majority, not the teachers union. When you have people in place that are doing competent and real things, do real work, you can see positive change when that happens. And the teachers unions cannot have that because it exposes them.
Right.
And exposes what it is we're talking about, which is current. All this chaos, all this nonsense is some of it planned. Some of it is because of their incompetence. It gets worse. Like they lie to cover up the lie. And then as you cover up that lie, then they have to do something else to misdirect people's attention onto something else. Like, oh, but it's Leandra Blades' fault because you asked, why are we spending hundreds of thousands of dollars for investigations on nothing? And why are we paying people to be on leave? And why are we hiring other superintendents to take the place of the people that are on leave, which is costing us another tens of thousands, hundreds of thousands of dollars. And it ends up being millions of dollars in the end. If you really were to look at it.
Why does Leandra Blades not want the Democrat Party and district school board members to use district resources for their own gain? Like why? Like, why would I not want that?
When you look at all these things, I mean, just everything. You have to take it all into one bag. I know there's separate budgets for different things, but if you really look at the hundreds of thousands and again, I say into the millions of dollars in all of these different things and the mismanagement, and then you're wondering, well, why can't we educate the kids? Why are they not reading and writing properly? At least at the grade level that they're supposed to be at. Why are we spending all this money on this and not really doing what needs to be done for these kids?
So I will say that there's a person in Tricia Quintero's camp, this activist, her name, Democrat Party, I don't recall her name, but she went up there and she said that I took a private jet up to Sacramento. I guess Southwest is a private jet. But so I went up there. And so when I was up there, we were up at Cisco because Cisco, had some, I guess they had been in some other school district where Cherniss had been. And so they were interested in the Cisco Academy, the AI stuff, OCSDS, the implementation. Like besides Garner and Holt, there was a lot of people who were interested in coming alongside and really like helping that school to grow. And so I will say that the Democrat Party, the Teachers Union, Yorba Linda Moms, throwing so much shade in this PYLUSD page, throwing so much shade at OCSDS and all the plans that they had, just talking about this $1 million we had to pay for this innovation lab. That's like what we had to pay. I mean, $1 million towards kids, and you're spending millions of dollars towards absolute just nonsense. And so we put that in. Enrollment shoots up. Bernardo enrollment was 550. I think OCSDS when they opened was at 750. So 200 kids is quite a $3 million. So nobody really quite get this, right? Oh, they're spending $1 million on an innovation lab. And so when I was up in it wasn't in Sacramento, but it was wherever Cisco was located, Chino Valley was there. Chino Valley took their COVID funds. Like, this is such the severe mismanagement. And even the current superintendent will agree that the COVID funds were absolutely mismanaged in our district. Chino Valley took $35 million and upgraded all of their security stuff with their COVID money. Like, all that money that they got, that one-time money, what did PYL do? They hired a bunch of people. They hired friends. They hired a bunch of adults to come in. And then when the one-time money was running out, they start screaming and yelling that I'm firing all these people when it's one-time money. But I'm sitting there and I'm just astonished what Chino Valley is telling me. because they have, the self-locking doors, they have license plate readers, they have the best security. I mean, Beverly Hills, where Cherniss is, I was out there. I went and, looked at their security. I went out there and visited Cherniss and, looked at their security. I mean, they have top-notch security. But what did we, during COVID, all that one-time money, what did the district get? What did the kids get? What did they use the money on?
They pulled to Minnesota.
Exactly. So where is that money? And that's what we have to keep asking. And so when you ask these questions, that's when they say, she's terrible. She's an insurrectionist. She's this, she's that, she's that. No, I'm asking questions. I'm not afraid to ask them. I'm not afraid to ask them to your face. I'm not afraid to ask them out loud. I'm not afraid to ask them, whatever. I mean, remember even too, we had Todd Robbins, if you'll remember before closed session that one time, I'm asking him questions because he had no guidance towards the board and he was hiring investigators for things that the board hadn't even given him guidance on. I have the text message to prove it. So when I call him out, he basically looks to Marilyn and says, just go to closed session, go to closed session. So I don't have to answer these questions. It's because this is what they did. AALRR has been our attorney since 1980. And so nobody asked these questions. And don't get me wrong, AALR has some good attorneys. But what I have been finding and what we continue to find is that they do shady things. Mike Matthews, our interim superintendent, was an employee of AALRR. So when the board majority switched and we were trying to move to Orbuck, Huff, and Henderson, and he was impeding us in every way because that was his baby. He was going back there when he was done being our interim superintendent. So, I mean, it's so the swamp runs so deep and the good old boys club is just crazy. But then also too, you have, and this is the thing that's obviously Beth Fisher, great principal. She's gone on to do amazing things, writing a book. I mean, she's all over the country, but she was willing to be principal of OCSCS, to do good things for the people in our community. So, Buck, if Beth called in sick, Buck calls around and asks, why is Beth Fisher sick? Completely against employment law. Why did she call in sick? Completely against the law. Beth files an EEOC complaint. They gave her the right to sue, Yeah. And so you have board members doing this. So if you think that board members are not attacking principals and they're not causing hostile work environments, I mean, so even now we have EEOC complaints and, people I think Cherniss against Buck and Anderson has an EEOC complaint for discrimination or harassment.
And what does EEOC stand for again?
The Equal Opportunity Employment or something like that. Okay. But I mean, it's you have to go through, they investigate and they deem if this is a credible thing. So there's an investigation that happens and then they say, yes, you have the right to sue and they'll send it to the district. And so it's my understanding that Cherniss right now has one against Buck and Anderson. But then also too, I mean, we should be asking him, what is going on with his cases? I'm having to call Keenan. I'm having to call, attorneys who won't call me back and won't give me information because there's a lot of shady stuff that's going on. We have people changing dates of complaints that are being filed. We have there's employment complaints against board members and they're refusing to investigate. We have all of these things going on and we're all just supposed to sit here quietly and go, okay, all this is okay because you have the board majority, you don't have to investigate. We allowed all kinds of investigations to go on, we didn't even come, I didn't even know some of the things will be happening because they would just investigate. You get the complaint, okay, they start the investigation. With this, things are being hidden, with Mussolino is hiding things left and right. He was basically hired, hooking up his buddies, his retirement buddies from all of these firms because he was once again a consultant. He goes around and I feel very sorry for any district that he goes and, talks with or consults with. But, so he was hooking up all of his buddies. And then I went.
Just a money grab. This whole thing is a money grab.
The whole thing was a money grab. I mean, how do you hire as an interim principal at El Dorado? How do you hire a retired superintendent that you're friends with? The interim principal at Esperanza was another retired person that he was friends with.
Was that after they harassed Loan?
That was after they harassed Loan. And that was the thing. With Mussolino, they came in and he just did whatever this board majority said, whether it violated policy or not. When I asked to put the resolution for men and women's sports, he went and he told me that all three board members didn't want it on the agenda. So he wasn't going to put it on the agenda, which is an absolute Brown Act violation. I turned it into the DA. The DA said, yes, it was a Brown Act violation, but because I was so vocal about it and they put it on the next board agenda, it was determined to be cured. But I mean, so you have him stopping. And the reason he wanted to put it on the agenda was it was too political. It could affect his business.
His business.
Yeah. And that's the thing. The superintendent, and that's the thing about this is that the superintendent is not supposed to be part of the voting thing. He's supposed to take direction from the board. So it doesn't matter. I could put 50 things on the agenda and nothing I'm putting on the agenda should affect his business. Right. It should only affect myself as a board member. If he was actually a true superintendent consultant, that would have been his response. But because like at the CSBA conference, the California School Board Association, we pay $35,000 to be a part of a political lobbyist firm. They have superintendents sitting up there, excoriating board members, talking about, these books that should be in those school libraries. Why are you giving superintendents? If this is a California School Board Association and their superintendent is our one employee, why are you putting superintendents up there and giving them these platforms? It doesn't make any sense.
Nope. So I've heard some rumblings about Esperanza High School. Why don't you tell me? I don't want to say anything bad. I've heard what may be happening there.
Okay. Well, so what was really appalling, and I've been appalled. I've been appalled for like a year.
I've been appalled for 5 years.
I've been appalled, but I've been very appalled for a long time. And so with Loanne, I always butcher her last name. So Loanne, I'm so sorry. But Saruksa, it's so bad. I just call her Loanne. She was hired and she was, very, very good in curriculum and instruction. And obviously we have declining enrollment at Esperanza. And so the job for her was to come in and, get kids up to speed, reading and writing, help boost the programs, things like that. And so she took a huge backlash from the teachers union and the teachers at Esperanza.
Because she was doing a good job.
Yeah.
Okay.
And so it was a hard year for her. But what had happened was under Musarino came to her and basically said that there was district personnel who were harassing her. And I think even a couple board members, but district personnel confirmed that they were harassing her. And he said to her, well, you should have expected this. You came over and were hired by Cherniss. And so that was where I absolutely am sickened by Buck, Anderson, and Quintero. Because if you're using Musarino, or if you're using district employees to harass a principal that you don't like, maybe because this principal may have known something about your personal life that you don't want out there, like for personal reasons, you just don't like this person. Musarino is the superintendent of schools, or he was. He is supposed to protect the employees. But he basically went to Loanne and said, yeah, you're being harassed and you're being discriminated against. And, you should have known when you came here, when you took this job, too bad. So there was no protection. There was nothing for the district personnel who were actually doing this. And so I called him on that. And he says, yeah, I told her that, because I was shocked. I was like, there's no way. I mean, I believe Loanne, but I was like, there was no way. And I called him and I asked him and he says, yes, I absolutely said that. So then the question is like, if you don't have a superintendent who's going to protect employees from personnel who are absolutely harassing and violating the law, like this is who Buck, Quintero, and Anderson brought in. And then the interim principal at the time, before we have Kelly there, he told the teachers, you don't have to honor the district curriculum. You can teach whatever you want because I'll be gone and you'll probably be done by the time the lawsuit gets filed and is through the court. So these are the type of people that were brought in for this last year. And then Musarino wasn't even, he didn't do, it was just such a cluster. I have no words. But so what's happening at Esperanza now is, we have these AP classes that are being taken away. And I absolutely disagree with it because these teachers, a lot of people who are teaching, who have stepped up to teach, they are absolutely, they're getting supplemented because they're teaching 6 periods. They don't have a prep period. And so now they want to take that away. They stepped up. They said, yes, I'll take it. And now they want to take it away, change all these kids' schedules. And it's just like, why? It's just, we've had just this past year with this board majority. And then, with Musarino being hired, getting rid of Cherniss and Gates, we've had absolute mismanagement. They actually hid the last CBO, not Joan, but the person before him. They hid a page from an audit that said that actually the year that Cherniss was there, we actually like saved $37 million. But they hid the page, they took it down. And so somebody saw it, called them on it. So then they put it up. So all of this stuff that was going on, there was so much district personnel trying to sabotage people. And then Mussolino and all these people were allowing it to happen. And so you can't have a superintendent who's just there to do 3 board members bidding. Right. Like this is exactly what he was. Because I don't believe for a second that he was doing, his job. You'd ask him of something. He put in at Esperanza, he put in, what is it called? It's a position we have at El Dorado, but we don't need it at Esperanza, but it was just another admin position. So as you're taking French 1,
pay one of the French.
Yeah, as you're taking French 1 away and you're taking all these things away from the kids, you're boosting admin when you're sitting there complaining of declining enrollment. And so it's really sickening me because I actually am starting to think that this is the play that this board majority is making. Like we were trying to boost Esperanza, and obviously like help enrollment, but everything that's been done in the past year by diverting, the dual language program from OCSDS and moving it to TEFRI, and they're really only promoting TEFRI as the dual language. By promoting all this stuff and doing this, it really is pulling away from Esperanza, and I truly believe they're trying to shut Esperanza down, which is sad.
Well, they've been having success in everything they've been doing in the negative success. They were able to do it with OCSCS and now Esperanza. Speaking of just the mismanagement of money and all the stuff that was going on, you have this, you brought it up earlier, and then you have this kitchen at Valencia High School that started off, I think I heard, the first time I heard it was $2-something million. Right. And I go, what kind of refurbish? I mean, I was like going, how is this possible? The kitchen at Esperanza High School in Placentia, California, how could it cost that much money? It just seems like a lot. And then I hear a little bit later on, I see something where it's going to cost like $3.6 million. And then I'm just going, what? This is ridiculous. So I do a PRA and send it through, and I get everything except for what I asked for, which is pretty normal. Because I really want to go, I need to see the bids and the itemized expense of what's going to cost, each portion of the rebuilding of this kitchen. I got none of that. Right. But I did see an email from Dr. Cherniss that said that, hey, it was to Carrie Buck, and he says, hey, the expense of that kitchen should not be this. He goes, I have a bid for $1.6 million. Right. To me, it seems still very expensive, but it's not anything that was going on. I just recently saw that it's now predicted to cost something like $6.3 million.
6.7, I think. Okay. And I think too, and that's the whole thing is you have to start looking at the contracts. Right. Who do they do? Are they going out?
Have you seen a bid yet? Because I see a bunch of emails in my PRA from you asking for the bids.
Yeah, I'm asking for the bids. They've never shown me a bid. They've never been transparent about anything. But that was the whole thing is, remember with USI, they kept saying how, we put out the bidding process. Yep. I haven't seen a bidding process be put out for the kitchen, but also too is they use the same people over and over and over again.
They're friends.
Yeah. That's what I think. I mean, if you're not going to tell me who the bids are, if you're putting it out there or not, and you just keep calling the same people over and over again, are we actually getting a good bid?
Is this project going forward?
Yeah, going forward. 6 points. I mean, I think Marilyn was pushing this. I think she went to Valencia. She lives across the street from Valencia. And so she was really pushing this, but a lot of the people, Sam Majovich, Nancy Watkins, all these people were teachers over there, Jim Bell, and so I think they really are pushing Valencia. It's what I've seen from the district is that Yorba Linda seems to be totally ignored, and it's Kramer and Valencia that they really, really push.
Well, fix the kitchen, but it's not good.
It doesn't need that.
Cost $6.3
and I also asked too, I said, if we don't do this huge project and do what they need to do, why don't we just have food brought in? Yeah. There's a ton of things that you can do,
in and out.
To avoid, I mean, because a lot of it is just a lot of waste. And, I know when my son was at Yorba Linda High School and Esperanza, they said the food was terrible. So why don't we just bring stuff in and so I asked them to look into some type of other things so we can save money. And they never got back to me. They never did it. Wow. So.
All right, let's talk about men and girls sports.
Yes.
So we got Buck, Anderson, Quintero love having men in these sports. I mean, they love being on the camera. They love being security for the mom of one of the transgender boys that I don't know what you call it, transgender boy or transgender girl. I don't even know. Who's now, I think he's number 1 in the nation in sport in track, in one of the sports in track. What is going on with, is this still a thing? I mean, really, it seems like this should be 2024. But it's carried on to 2025, and now here we are, 2026. It's still a thing. There's still.
And in fact, Newsom just put in that youth sports, if a boy wants to go play on girls' teams. And so what I think too is, and that's the whole thing that kind of bothers me, is I have Janice Lim running around saying that, you know, like she's a conservative and she's a Republican, but she's promoting and she's supporting people who are hardcore leftists who want men and women's sports. And this resolution, you know, it wasn't policy or procedures, to saying we support this. And, you know, they all voted. I mean, Carrie was wearing a transgender pride flag during the vote. And then Marilyn says, for the sake of kindness. Like, what in the world is kind about letting a man steal a place, you know, or take a position away from a female? It doesn't make any sense. But yeah, so during this time, and during the time of this vote, he was coming to the Yorba Linda High School track meet. And so I showed up because we were doing like a little press conference about it and trying to make people aware this is happening. This is not just rumors. This is happening. Mm-hmm. And also, too, taking a stand for these girls who are speaking up. You know, they called me. They said, will you come and will you speak? Will you support us? And I said, absolutely, I will. So I did that. And so when I actually went into the venue, I, walked over there and I saw Marilyn and Carrie in the Yorba Linda High School tent by the back gate. And I was like, what are they doing over there? Well, they were bringing in, the back gate is usually used for, like athletes? District personnel. No, not even the athletes. Like district personnel, like that's where you park. And that's kind of like the little side gate you get in. They were letting the mom and the athlete in that way. So they gave them special access. Mom, apparently, if she went back there, she didn't have to pay. So I was just curious, what other athletes, what other parents did we not allow to pay for that event? And so then Carrie's walking, Marilyn's out there. That was the whole thing too. Like Marilyn and her husband were walking around, escort. I'm like, what in the world is going on here? But then Carrie's escorting the mom around too. And then saying, oh, well, I was, providing protection, or it's like, the district, we were providing security. Oh, really, Marilyn, you're providing security? And then so like even Carrie, like so to make these, those were the first statements. They were providing security. And then it was just kind of like, hey. So I mean, like that's the whole thing is, we know that Carrie Buck has a lot of people that she knows with Pride at the Pier. She's very involved with them. Mm-hmm. And so all these Pride at the Pier people who are showing up, they're there for Carrie Buck. So, and I just don't understand. I don't understand how you're going to go and you're going to take I took a stance for the girls. I did. I took a stance, but I didn't get anybody's parents in free. I didn't provide security for these athletes who were speaking out, in the same manner. Yeah. But she's running around with this mom, of this athlete and giving them all kinds of special treatment and escorting them around. Like
it's one of the craziest topics and things that I just have not ever been able to I've been really trying to understand why both you and I were police officers. If we saw a woman getting spiked in the head with a ball by a man, we would arrest him. Mm-hmm. He'd go to jail for 243E1 or 245. Mm-hmm. and so I don't understand why you would allow that in a school. Like as a school board member, you're saying, it's okay if a man spikes a ball in a volleyball game to the heads of other girls. I have no problem with that.
Right. Well, I think too. So I think a lot of this is political because Josh Newman, Carrie's come out and supported Josh Newman for state superintendent, mm-hmm. Which I'm supporting Sonia Shaw, by the way. But
fantastic.
But Josh Newman also awarded his House OC $2.5 million, which was Carrie's firm. Carrie had left. But so, Lot 318 is getting a ton of money from Josh Newman. These are programs that, technically are done, through our district and stuff. And so I think that if you follow the money trail, like his House OC gets $2.5 million from Josh Newman, and Josh Newman is endorsed by Carrie Buck. I mean, and I think that this happened either at the time or as Carrie was on her way out. But you know what? Like, you don't see anybody giving me a bunch of money. I'm not running around with $2.5 million.
No, I give you what's in my pocket.
I'll buy you a cup of coffee.
How many charter schools are attempting to get into our district currently?
Oh my gosh. So this whole scuttlebutt before, when we were there that, we were going to allow for all the charter schools. I think the thing is I'm very pro charter, especially now, like having to sit with these board members who, we try to do a flag policy because we have, I just got a complaint from OCSCS parents that one of the teachers has a transgender pride flag on her desk, things like that. They're like, how is this appropriate? And all I have to say is, hey, you need to file a complaint, a religious complaint with, the superintendent if you want to do this. But we could have stopped this because I brought forward a flag policy that says all you can fly is the American flag and the state of California flag. You don't need to fly Black Lives Matter. You don't need to fly gender stuff. Just, just stick to keep the politics out of the classroom. And so, so here, what was the question?
How many charter schools are in the?
So we're doing this. And so when you have public schools who are pushing this type of agenda, like we just had the teacher over at El Dorado who, during Constitution Week, she was passing out stuff, how to avoid law enforcement and ICE.
Yeah. Candy Bremer.
Yes. Yeah. You have all these people doing these things and there's
a little flyer she was handing you.
Yes. So you have all these people doing this and you wonder, why are people walking away from public education? And so that was with OCSCS, when you had a principal that was standing there and saying, this will be an excellent education. It's going to be different than the traditional system, but we're trying to give you guys what you are seeking. The same with the Universal Sports Institute. I mean, how do you demonize a sports institute when Orange Unified thinks we had such a good idea that they're trying to implement one next year? And so you have the union just demonizing things and just pushing this out. And, too, Janice Lim was pushing out things. She was telling people that teachers are terrified to come to work under me. Oh, okay. There's all these things. You have all this fear mongering. And then so we lose almost 500 students, which is over $6 million since the time that Quintero, Buck, and Anderson came in up until that summer. Like, we weren't losing kids like that, when Cherniss was there and we had the board majority. Right. But they come in. And so that was the whole push for this, is to give them what our people want, to have people come into our district because we're giving what they want. They have a board majority who says, stop the nonsense. We're just going to educate. So then when you turn around and the flags are flying and you have, all of these things being discussed, and you have an interim superintendent who's saying, yeah, you can teach this. From what I've understood is people have been going to Musarino and saying, I want to teach this, because it doesn't align with the district curriculum. And he says, okay. So when you have these things happening and you lose all these students, and then these board members go, why is everyone leaving? It's like, oh my gosh, you can't be that dumb.
Right. You got principals being harassed and going, yeah, of course you are.
Yeah.
Too bad.
And then, then what was it? The El Dorado principal, after all of this stuff is happening, Esperanza de Loan, right? And basically Musarino is giving it a go. Like, we're going to allow this to happen, because basically you got hired by Cherniss and you should have known better. El Dorado principal flees, and everyone goes, oh my gosh, what's happened? Why? Well, why do you think the Quintero, Buck, and Anderson hired an interim superintendent who allowed employees and personnel to be harassed?
All right, I only got a couple more. You were talking about teachers a minute ago, and that you talked to some of them. How do the teachers, I don't know if this is pretty broad, but how do the teachers in the district treat you? What's it like?
I will. So I think, I go to a lot of sporting events.
Yes.
I do. I just love sports. I really do. I've gone, to some band stuff, but sometimes the band pageant and stuff, it's like, I think it's on a Wednesday night every year, and it's always been bad. So I'm going to try to go next year for sure. But, you'll see a lot of people who will say, hey, we support you. We support you. But then my whole thing is, what I have found is that I go to some school, everybody's very supportive. If people don't like you or not, and because they'll show you. But I've kind of backed off of school visits because I did go to a school and I just thought it was so inappropriate, and it put a principal in a bad position where they had a few staff members. One had actually tried to recall me, which was in 2020 or something, or 2021. She was pushing for the recall. I guess she was trying to get the signatures. they basically said they were going to like lock their doors and they were going to be super rude to me. And so people like in the, like other teachers and employees found out what they were doing. So they went to the principal, and the principal had to basically say, you can't act this way. So you go out there and you're like, okay, so these are the people who are teaching your kids,
Mm-hmm.
and how is that right? So it's mixed. Like I have a lot of people who reach out. I have a lot of people who a lot of teachers who we do not agree, but if they want, no, I'll go to war for them, or I'll go to battle because something's just not right. They'll reach out to me. They'll never say they reached out to me,
right?
But they will, which is good, which is fine, because I understand. Like, I mean, I tried to meet with people in the teachers union, like some of the APLA reps, and I would have a meeting like lined up with them. And then Linda Mannion would say, do not meet with her. Do not talk with her. And so that was one of the things, is that she was able to just keep going with this narrative, how evil and terrible I am, and push all this stuff like that I'm racist and I'm homophobic. But when people actually talk to me, they go, okay, that's not what her thoughts are.
Mm-hmm.
That's not what she actually believes. Because Linda Mannion would go to these, and Linda Mannion, they would go to these like luncheons, and then they would just say, oh, the conservatives are going to take away your raises. They're going to do this. You're going to have to, do X, Y, and Z. You're going to have to do all these things.
Didn't they get a raise when you were president?
They got so many raises when we were. It's like, so it's not even factual.
Right.
But if you scare people, it's just the same as like what happens with COVID and what happens with all these.
Minnesota,
fear. Yeah.
You're racist because you noticed that it's the tamales.
And people, people get scared. And so if you scare people, you can get people to do things that normally they wouldn't do.
One of the most common attacks that I get, and you've gotten, and when you bring up the teachers union, is that, well, see, they hate teachers. The teachers union is an organization that is a Democrat PAC.
Yes.
It is a money laundering organization to put money into the Democratic Party.
Yes.
It is not these teachers that we see in our classrooms necessarily.
Right.
They pay them. They pay the dues.
Yeah.
And
they have no idea where their dues go.
They have no idea where their dues go. But just because we're bringing up the corruption and the nonsense of the teachers union, it doesn't mean we hate teachers.
Exactly.
We have a few teachers that have done some really crazy things.
Yes.
You got the I brought her up earlier, who's teaching that Abraham Lincoln is racist, and he had nothing to do with the abolishment of slavery. Zero, according to her.
Right.
You had another one who was teaching kids how to anally masturbate using a vibrator that you could buy at Target, and she was telling them where they could get it. This is all crazy stuff. So we have a few of those teachers. We have many teachers that are fantastic.
Yes.
I actually am friends with quite a few teachers, and some of them have been the teachers of my kids at El Dorado and other schools, and in OCSCS. And so we have amazing teachers. The problem is they're not given the tools and the resources to actually educate our kids.
Right.
And so the only reason I'm bringing this up is because I get the same thing. I get teachers stopping me at Target, Stater Brothers, Costco, and say, hey, I love what you're doing. Keep it up. I can't say any of these things.
Right.
I'm not going to speak up because I'll get harassed.
Right.
Linda Mannion is one of them that they just say, oh, she'll make sure that my life is miserable.
Yep.
Or other people that are involved in the teachers unions, they'll come after them.
Yep.
And they're so afraid. They continue to pay the dues, and they're afraid to even speak out, and they are at a loss as what they can do.
Right.
But yet this is the problem. And so we need parents to speak up. We need parents to really take a stand, and really, you can PRA yourself. If there's something you're interested in, send in a PRA, ask questions, go to the school board meetings, and just be involved in what's happening in our schools. The problem is that so many parents stay silent.
Yeah.
I've been on a campaign for the last several years. For a period of time, it was me and a couple other men that would show up at the school board meetings, and all the moms, and then all of course, the nitwits. And so I would say, where are all the men? Yeah. Especially when your girls are being subjected to boys going in the boys' bathroom, a girls' bathroom, and going into the girls' gym. Yeah. And it's being allowed to happen, and they're competing against them in sports. Where are the fathers saying, I'm not allowing my daughter to be in the restroom while a man is standing next to her peeing?
Right.
Like, I don't understand why this is being allowed, and why we don't see enough men at the school board meetings really arguing against it. We've seen an increase, so I'm happy about the guys that have been showing up. But I don't know why every father who has a girl in the district isn't at the school board meetings at this point.
Right.
I don't understand. This has to change this year. 2026 has to be a change for bringing change at PYLUSD. PYLUSD, in my opinion, is going to be short-lived if this is allowed to continue. Buck gets reelected, and this three board members are still in control, which is the teachers union in control. Again, listen to me when I'm telling you, they are so incompetent and so ill-equipped mentally that they are being run by the school, the teachers unions. Yep. And they take all their cues, all their scripts are written by the teachers union. They have no idea what they're doing. They don't know how to run a business. They've never been involved in running a business. They don't know how to spend money. They don't know how to save money. They know how to do nothing. And I'm not exaggerating. You guys really have to go there. All the chaos being created isn't just because Leandra's asking questions. She's not even getting emails. No. Correct me if I'm wrong. Carrie Buck or Marilyn, they don't even return emails. You ask a question, they don't even send you an email back.
I've asked questions. I've asked all these things, and Marilyn won't reply.
So it's not Leandra causing these problems. She's just asking the questions and say, why are we spending money on this? Why are we suspending a Black superintendent and yet voting for CRT at the same time and DEI policies? It makes no sense. He is the best, he's the second best superintendent we've ever had at this school.
Yeah, he was great. And I think too, the thing is you don't go and you don't do a lot of great things and have, some of the best, like I think Gates had the highest performing like high school when he was principal, wherever. They were like the highest performer in the state. So you don't just go there and all of a sudden you come to PYLUSD and you're just a piece because you're not, because you're not in the old boys club. And that's the whole thing is, and I know people are really starting to see that the California School Board Association, all of these superintendent search firms, all of these, like Doug Kimberly was supposed to be our next interim superintendent. He's in a superintendent search firm. Mike Matthews was supposed to be an interim superintendent, or was an interim superintendent. He was from our own law firm, which is probably a 1090 violation.
This is a guy who claims to be a U.S. history teacher. He didn't know that our country was a constitutional republic.
Yes,
he didn't know that.
Yeah. So I mean, so you have all these. So you have all these things. I mean, look at Mussolino. Yeah. Mussolino's in with the old boys club. He's got this consulting firm. I mean, so if you're not in the club, then you're out. And so they'll try to destroy you. Like they have tried to destroy Cherniss. They've tried to destroy Gates because they won't go along with the program. They won't, they won't go along with what the teachers union is if it's not going to be good for kids. Right. They're just not going to do it. And so, another thing too that I think people aren't thinking about is that when we lost 400 to 500 students after this last election from December of 2024 till the present, and you lose over $6 million, that's where your teachers go to. If you don't have kids, there's no more. Like before, you were able to lose enrollment, and because of this one-time money, they kept hiring their buddies, they kept hiring staff, and that one-time money runs out, and they go, "Oh my gosh, this is the conservatives firing people." No, it's not. If you don't have people in those seats, there's no money, there's no one-time money, there's no cover-up anymore where you can continue to employ these people. If you don't have the students, like what we're seeing at Esperanza. You don't have the students, that's when the teachers are starting to have to go. And this is just the reality of the situation is, you had Tricia Quintero change her party, she's a Democrat. I think she was registered in Tricia Quintero. You have her, running around in 2022 with the teachers union, the Democrat Party in Bray and Fullerton, running around, promoting teachers union people. And then she changes her party preference to NPP, and they say, "Oh no, she's not political. She's not this. She's not that." And then you have Joey Davis, who's contributing to her campaign while he's the El Dorado principal, and then makes her like PTA Parent of the Year, and puts it all over the website. You have all these people who are they're so upset because they're not getting they're not able to just run a superintendent anymore. You have a superintendent who came in and says, "No. We're here for the students. You're not going to have jungle, it's not going to be, survival of the fittest at your school during lunch. We're not going to do that anymore. And you're going to have control and the students are going to learn." And so people say, "Oh my gosh, this is awful. We need to get them out." And so they use district resources to promote who the next person should be, and then you get in and like Quintero's voters, they're all coming to me. They go, "These people came to my door, said how terrible you and Todd were. And now we find out that we were lied to." Yeah. So you have people who are just lying to get into office, and they're going to try it with Barbara Buckley against Todd Frazier. If you go look at Barbara Buckley's campaign thing, she says CRT is not happening. And there's nothing that you can do about men and women's sports because that's a state issue. Well, you know what? We shouldn't be electing people who just say, "This is for the state. All we're going to do is worry about this." I mean, Barbara Buckley and Nancy Watkins are best friends. That should tell you something. You should look at Nancy Watkins' podcast.
Watkins. Great.
So, I mean, so you have all these things that are happening, and I think people don't realize, but I mean, if you look at it, like sometimes you look at school board, you look at city council, people seem like they're very, very like into city council. City council's budget is nowhere near our budget. I think their budget's 80 million. We're like at 340 million.
We cover something like 5 cities.
Yeah. Right? Yeah. We cover 5 cities, but then also too, we employ so many people. The city doesn't employ nearly half of it. And so you really need to get involved and know who's on your school board, like who is pushing these things in the classroom, because these are kids. They are in charge of your kids. And that's what I keep telling people. Like you want to talk about a ribbon cutting in a business or whatever it is that city council is doing. These people are in charge of your kids. Whoever is running for school board, you guys really need to know what they're going to bring in, because Janice Lim can say whatever, but you know what? The reason I go hard after Janice Lim is because the lies she was telling the community, the things that she was saying, and the lies she continues to tell the community, that is affecting everybody's kids. It affected our district because we have, the board majority changed and everybody fled.
Yep. Yeah.
Yeah.
We had a guest walk in. Yeah. I mean, people, they just have to get involved and pay attention to what's going on. This is a critical time.
But I also think too, it's time for the community to start to call, because this is how, like, if you think that things are just happening at the national level where people are covering up and, people are violating policy and procedure, like we're having this done, like right at this level, like right now. Mm-hmm. Like, we had people, employment issues. We have all these things. We have people filing employment things against board members, and nobody's investigating it because the board majority says not to. Like, I mean, how do you ever get out from the corruption if it's happening at this little level?
Yep.
Like, how do you have this? I mean, so you think, oh, things are at the local level. Well, we can change and enact things at the local level. But the community, like, this is your taxpayer money. So you should be calling for investigations into these 3. You should be calling and see if there was collusion, with employees to file complaints. Yep. What happened to Loanne? How is it, like, how as a board member, how am I able to, and I know Todd feels the same way, but these other 3, how are they sitting there going that this person was harassed? And a superintendent basically said, well, it's okay. You should have known because you got hired by Cherniss. Like, and they're standing for it. Like, this is the type of thing is you don't just stand for people who fall in your politics or, you just don't like them for a certain thing. Like, you have to stand for everybody. And that's not what we're having here.
Nope. Let's get to this last question. And that is, Andy, have you thought of running for school board? No, because Leandra Blades is in my area. I was before I moved. I was living in Brea, and I was thinking about running then.
I think you should run for city council.
Really?
I do. I do.
Really? Mm-hmm. I just might.
Do
I have your endorsement?
Yes.
All right, my friends, we got to go. We got a lot going on here in PYLUSD. Get involved. Pay attention to what's happening. If you have any questions, if you see me anywhere, just stop me and ask me any questions you have. I'm not afraid to try to answer any questions. If I don't know the answer, I'll say I don't know. I won't make something up like Marilyn Anderson or Quintero or Buck. I will, or I won't call my attorney and say, how do I answer this question?
Yes. How do I shut, you don't have to call Leandra or the attorney and say, how do we shut up Leandra Blades?
Yeah. All right, my friends. God bless. We love you guys. Take care.